brought some books here, not just for keyboard players, but for all players and even singers. Like, there's a lot of books. One of the publications I really like is the Musicians Institute. And this book in particular is ear training for the contemporary musician. And what it really does, it goes through notation, it goes through interval training, it goes through rhythm training, and everything that you pretty much need to start for the people who don't already know how to read. This is a really good book for you to start, even if you're trying to sight sing. What it does also, it has a CD. It has 2 CDs in the back of it as well that correlates to response to every lesson that's taught in the book. So for the people that are beginning to learn how to read, or you really want to learn, this is really a good method. I also brought an exercise book. A lot of people now, there are all types of hand and exercise books. I have pretty much all of them. They have the jazz hand, they have the classical hand. This is the classical hand. And basically what it is, with drummers, you guys have rudiments. And rudiments are your fundamental tool that you learn how to learn your patterns. Well, the same thing applies for keyboard players and bass players and guitar players. But instead of rudiments, we have hand exercises. And these are basically like E2s, and what you do is each exercise helps your fingers and helps you have independence with your fingers. So people, that way, a lot of times we hear people do a run and everybody runs down, or it's the same kind of pattern. And what this book helps you do is change up the pattern. So instead of just going straight down all the time, you can go up sometimes, or you can mix it between going up and down, and also get that left hand as well where you want to get it to kind of match the right hand. And I'm kind of going quickly because I have to, as Sharay said, I do have to go to a rehearsal actually right now. But one of those exercise books that I brought too this is called the Stride and Swing Piano Book. This is by another great publication, Hal Leonard. Now, where do you get these books? You get these books at Sam Ash. Now, you can order the books off Amazon, but one of the great advantages over Sam Ash and Guitar Center is not equipment. Equipment, I definitely think the Guitar Center is better. But as far as educational tools, Sam Ash is superior because they have a lot of books. Unfortunately, when I go and pick up the books, it's not a lot of us over there picking up the books. Right. But that's what this is for, so that we can change that. So in Sam Ash, they have a lot of books. I primarily play a lot of R&B and jazz music. Now, the other way of learning beyond reading is knowing tunes. One of my little brothers that's out there, a tremendous musician, is Dio, and I used to always tell Dio, one of the things I think that has made him so great, I said, when you guys get together and have jam sessions, especially drummers. I always watch these videos of these drummers just killing. And they're not playing over a song, they're just playing a groove and going back and forth with each other. It's like, learn songs. Your song vocabulary. I think when Brother Terry and Brother Jamie came up here, they were doing songs. These are hymns, these were songs. When you do your chops and you shed over songs, learn the form of the song. Learn the A, the verse. Learn what the chorus is. Learn where the vamp is. Learn how each portion of the song is configured for multiple songs. Whether it be jazz or R&B, everything has a form. And when you learn the form, you understand how to set up the song. Because otherwise, it's just like us talking. We talk in sentences and phrases. We don't just talk endlessly. Right. The same thing with music. This particular hand and exercise book is for classical. They have, they have a complete series. They have the Hannon for blues. They have the Hannon for stride and boogie woogie. They have the Hannon for jazz. They have a jazz chord Hannon as well. And basically the fingering, it has the fingering in there for how you're supposed to do it. Now, the other thing, the great Tony Williams was an awesome drummer. What he said was everything he practiced slow. So he never practiced anything fast. So when you're practicing, riffs or runs, do it very slow over and over again. Even though you get bored, what it does is it helps you look at the form of your hand. It makes you figure out the most comfortable method for you to be able to maneuver. And then over time, you speed up. You speed up. Some people with classical training actually put quarters on top of their hand as they're doing runs and they're playing. What it does, again, it helps you with your form, because if you do a movement that's out of place, the quarter's going to fall. So what happens is you constantly play over and over these exercises until, you build up your speed. You probably start out at about 60 or 70 BPMs with a metronome. And try to practice with a metronome as well, because all that's going to do is help your timing, especially from watching and listening. Again, song repertoire is perhaps one of the greatest tools. If you're playing the same songs over and over again, you're not going to get better. You've got to challenge yourself to learn a vocabulary of songs. One of the great things, I think I see my minister of music sitting back there with her hat on, stylist Joyce Hurley. One of the things we get to do at the church under Joyce is we get to play music outside of just regular, praise and worship and church songs. I get to interject TV shows, movie themes. And these are little things that we don't pay attention to, but there's a lot of ideas in little movie themes, movie scores, TV shows, commercials. All this stuff, all those things can be used, because we as musicians, we set atmosphere, we set moods. And sometimes it's not all about just a spiritual mood. Sometimes it's okay to make people laugh, to open up, that breaks their yoke. And then we can later bring in the spiritual portion to be able to minister to them effectively. So it's all about knowing, how to use the music, to be able to break people and to help them.
You said a lot, and I'm not going to be before you long, but I just want to remind us as musicians that we have a charge and we have a gift that God has given all of us. And one scripture that I quote every day is when Paul was teaching Timothy in 2 Timothy 2:15, and it says, "Study to show thyself approved, a workman that needeth not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth." And we have that, and we have the ability to make sure that we are studying and that we're being masterful, because if God gave us this gift, then He's looking for our best. Right. And it's just been phenomenal, all of us having these gifts and doing what we do. You probably already know this, but one thing that I'm reminded of often is that in addition to God's word, when we all leave this earth, music is going with us too. He anointed it, and it's going to travel with us. So we want to make sure that the gift that He's given us, that we're studying to the best of our ability. I have just a small survey, and I was talking this over with. Can I travel back there? I was talking this over with Tony, and our prayer is that we want to make sure that we're serving all of the musicians in here, as well as ourselves, to make sure that we're being the absolute best that we can for you. Everybody's at different levels, so I put together a little survey that's like, a few minutes. And I know sometimes we get a little self-conscious, but this is kind of different. One of the things that we, again, want to do is to make sure that, when we start, everybody might, some may know the lines and spaces, some may not. So we want to make sure we're addressing people where they are to just better serve you. So the code that you'll text to is 37607. And that's for this first question. And it says, are you efficient in reading notated chords and rhythms, or chord symbols and rhythm charts? So if you're efficient in notated chords and rhythms, then text 314-773-2-37607. Okay? Or, if you are efficient in just reading chord symbols and rhythm charts, then text 314-845 to that code. Okay, we got some that says neither. got to use our technology, y'all. Amen. It's here for us, so we got to use it.
It's real time.
Yes, it's real time. I did a clinic called The Colors of the Drum Set, and it talked about the different sounds, and that's why you have so many different sizes for cymbals. You can just teach them. And really in jazz, when I was in school, we had to learn how to play the melodies on the drum, like Autumn Leaves or do-do-do-do, do-do-do-do. We had to learn how to play that on different drums. So really it's a matter of, it's challenging now with technology and music is the way it is, but we have to learn to do that. Tuning, things like that. I'm finding that a lot of drummers have a hard time tuning those drums. So, but just really listening again, like what Tony was saying, embracing some playing tunes. That's a good thing that you can let drummers know. Just play some old stuff, some of that old gospel, that James Cleveland, and just spread out, get to that jazz thing, wherever there's a good melody, and just kind of work around the drum kit. Any other questions, comments?
What he was doing, he said, what can I communicate to musicians that can help you better understand sound? And I think for me, everybody around here in the room are definitely like the cats. So I'm sure y'all have a good relationship with certain, y'all know how to interact with sound. So I think for me, I can kind of explain maybe the psychology of a sound man, and maybe that might help people to understand what's going on. So, and what I want to do is I want to kind of do like a Jerry Springer thing where I'm going like to the total extreme. Okay. So it's not like my wife still talks to the guy she went to high school with. It's like my wife is sleeping with the neighbor who's my cousin, who's my pastor. So everything I'm saying is like an extreme to the level of, of a sound man. It necessarily sums up every sound man.
Yes, that is extreme.
I think these elements are in every sound guy, to a certain extent, whether they want to admit it or not. And a lot of what I'm saying is conversations I've had with other sound men. So I think, and I was on a rock show, I think, when this joke was made, and I thought it was very profound, and it has nothing to do with the church per se. But the joke goes, what's the difference between God and a sound man? God don't think he's a sound man. So, I think one thing that sound men deal with, have to wrestle with, and I think the only people who kind of relate the most is the bass player and the vocalist, where you can man the room. So as a vocalist and the bass player, just he's responsible for the bottom and the feel of the room, and then a vocalist, they get the most attention and the most reward from other people immediately. So musicians are always trained. It's part of the culture to be humble, where that's what going on in the sound. So I think they really wrestle with that because basically, you have all the power, like the wattage speakers, the big heavy consoles, the ability to turn people up and down, turn them off. So I think that's one thing they wrestle with a lot. The other thing I think that most sound men wrestle with is the concept of validation, and I think most sound men fall into one of these three categories. You're either a nerd, you failed as a musician, or you failed as a DJ. Because you just don't go up wanting, I want to just do sound.
Wow.
So it's a level of frustration, I think, with every sound man, because it's like they missed the mark. And I think that the closest comparison is like a DJ, which is a running joke in a lot of white people. The DJ is the guy who always wants to sit at the table with the cool kids. He's around the music, but he's really not in it. But from a distance, he looks like he's involved, but he's really not. He's not even really important to the music, but he's painting a great picture. And I think the sound man kind of falls in that same category where he's really wrestling with a frustration. And one thing I think is profound as a sound man is that no one ever comes up at the end of the show and says, wow, that sounded great.
Right.
And as a musician or a performer, if you have a good show, they're going to let you know. So that's another level of frustration. And I think another level of frustration for sound men is that at the end of the day, because they are frustrated, they need you to validate them. Because basically, the level of play that you're at validates their entire career. And it validates their gig. So one thing I made a note of is you can have the right sound man on the wrong gig. So if he's a great sound man and he feel like he's on the wrong gig, he's going to be that much more frustrated. So there's always a hype or aura or anointing, however you want to phrase it, around certain people. And if you take a person like a Sharay or Terry Moore or anybody in this room, a sound man's going to get excited about being on that show versus doing something like a kindergarten recital. Right. So the more excited you can get him about you and your music, the better of a response you get out of him.
Wow.
So
that's good.
I think that's like a really major thing that musicians can walk away with. And if you really are into his sound, then you'll get a better response from him. And then I think one thing about sound men that creates a little bit of weirdness for musicians is that most times sound men are not that good at music. In the sense that every day as a musician you wake up and you're mastering your instrument and mastering your sound. So you, as a bass player, you probably understand what good bass tone is, as opposed to the sound man. He understands what a good DI is, what a good console is, but he can't tell you the difference between a James Jamerson bass line and a Verdell bass line. He don't know. So a lot of times, you got to find a way to navigate that situation. Because I've been in situations as a young engineer where if I'm on a rock show, it's one vocal and an acoustic guitar. I got 2 channels, I got nothing to hide behind, and everybody in the room has a better idea what that guitar is supposed to sound like, but me. Yeah, I'm the sound. So that's definitely an area that as a performer you have to be aware of and be able to try to navigate that, to try to get them to give you the sound you're looking for without, getting on the wrong side of the whole thing. And I think another thing about sound man that's really important is that it's not so much ego a lot of times as it is you're dealing with a professional instrument. Like a sound man is definitely the fat dude behind the curtain who calls himself the Wizard of Oz. Like he's paid to have the answer. So if he don't have the answer, that creates a real big dilemma for him. So a lot of times he has to be right. And a lot of times when you meet a personality like that, it's ego driven. Well, for him, he has to be right because if he's wrong, he's gonna lose his gig. So that's another area that performers really got to be aware of. That like he's under a lot of stress in that regard if he doesn't know how to manage that. And I think one other thing I want to kind of talk about was usually the day of a sound man is we show up at the venue at 7 in the morning. We unload a semi truck, maybe take a break, prep for the sound check. Musicians come to sound check. The singer never wants to sound check. Musicians really don't want to play at the level of loudness they're going to play at for the actual show. Don't want to play at all. Walk off the stage, and then for the next 3 hours we prep for the show. Then we have the show. So his work day is the better part of 14 hours. Then he got to unload the truck. And then the funnest part of the show, which is interacting with the audience, he's under the gun to break the show down. So as a workflow, he's working the whole entire day. The musician comes in, sound checks 20 minutes, goes away, comes back, plays for an hour and a half, and he's everybody's hero. So again, it's another level of frustration that he's dealing with because a sound man is definitely like a MacGyver. He got whatever the problem is, he got to solve it, he got to fix it, he got to fix it by a particular time and to your specification, whether what you're saying is absolutely ridiculous or absolutely on point. So, but at the end of the day, it's kind of a thankless job. Yeah. And the only person who's going to thank him is the artist and is the musician. And if you get that he's a good sound guy, if you get he's really trying and you play to that, you're going to get a better result as opposed to asking the question, what's his problem? Because he got a lot of problems.
Some pastors speak about it, but one of the components we miss is that we don't handle our business. And I've talked on a number of occasions about us musicians handling our business. I think that we're more concerned about the platform and who we're playing for, and where we're traveling to, or I'm going to get my check and I'm going to go and spend it all up on stuff that's I think everybody like, but you can't afford to live on a day-to-day basis. So I think that we kind of have our priorities pretty much screwed up. So I'm here in hopes of helping each musician to look at this as if it's a business. Set yourself up for the rest of your life. Don't put yourself in a position where you have to go from church to church, for 3, 4, 5 churches on Sunday, in order to be able to live on a day-to-day basis. Because 9 times out of 10, a lot of these churches that y'all going to, that you're playing at, they really don't have their business straight in a lot of cases, and checks bouncing and pastors doing stuff they don't have no business doing, so they get set down and the next pastor bring in a whole nother crew. It's just so much that goes along with it. So I'm going to talk about some business a little bit. All right. So first thing as a musician, some things that you guys didn't know, and I know Miss Val know a lot about this too. Being incorporated as each individual musician, you can actually have your own corporation. What would that do for you? Having your own corporation will put you in a different tax bracket, so that way when taxes come around, we don't have to get the accountant to finagle your taxes so you can get $4,000 or $5,000 back at the end of the year. They say you owe them $100,000 because you done had them to hook your taxes up. So incorporate yourself, and every time you get paid, have whoever's paying you to pay your corporation, and then allow your corporation to pay you. So set a budget so that way, if you want to buy a car, buy your corporate name, write it off. If you want to buy this, if you want to buy drumsticks, if you want to buy a snare, if you want to buy a keyboard, whatever you want to buy that has anything to do with your business, write it off so that way you can be in a different tax bracket, okay? And these are things, I'm just kind of briefly going through things, and these are things that you can talk about, we can talk about it at a later date. Let me see, what else? Having a life policy, 401k plan. Yeah. I think one of our biggest hindrances as black people is that when somebody died, you got to go around with the collection plate trying to collect money, in order to, bury somebody, prayerfully next to the railroad track. This is the truth. And one thing that I like about what I do as being a professional musician, along with being a tonsuro artist, is that I'm my own boss. So I make my own hours. I can cut hair in the day. Well, I don't cut full time anymore, but I can cut hair in the day, and then I was still able to travel all over the world, and play and do my gigs at night, do my gigs on Sundays, whatever the case may be. And I was able to have something pretty much to fall back on, and just really didn't have to depend on. If anybody knows me, they know that any church that I was at, a lot of times I end up paying other musicians out of my pocket, or either, I think I'm 39 years old. I don't think I've ever told anybody how much money to pay me if they ask me to come play at a church. Not because I minimized who I was, but because of the fact that I do it because I love it. And when you do it because you love it, you know what I'm saying, and I'll talk about some things as it relates to that a little bit down my list. But when you do it as a love it, because you love it, it'll turn out a lot better for you. So having a life policy, 401k plan, how does this work together? There's actually an insurance policy that you can get, that if you get this insurance policy, it's very, very cheap. All right? We look at it, oh man, I'm young, I don't need no insurance policy, blah, 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 blah. So I'll wait and get that later. But they have an insurance policy that you can actually borrow from. Or you can have this insurance policy that if you do a 30-year pay, if you do a 15-year pay, in 30 years, when you're ready to retire from being a musician, quote unquote, it's almost like, okay, State Farm, send me my check. Or, you know what, I think I want to start my own music school. So, send me about $10,000, $15,000. they're obligated to do that. But if something happens to you, this insurance policy serves as, your beneficiary being able to, diligently take care of your business, if you pass away or something like that. So that's another way. Like, we don't save money. We don't put money in the bank. And we really don't make a lot of money. As musicians, come on, let's be real. Even some people who are on the biggest platforms, I think that those who are on big platforms and those who have been doing this for a long time, I think it's only fair that they be honest and transparent and let us know it's not sweet like y'all think that it is. A lot of you guys know my nephews, Clem and Jermaine. And I told them, I said, you have no other choice but to go to school. I'm letting you know, you got to go to school, get some theory behind what you're doing, so that way you don't have to worry about chasing these kids. I'm going to make sure you're straight. Go to school, get some theory if you want to teach, be able to sit down behind them drums, whatever you want to do, read your music, and just be, and there's some good boys, you know what I'm saying? But I'm trying to make sure that I'm transparent and letting them know it's just like y'all coming up. Like, they didn't have YouTube and stuff. Like, I had to stay on top of my craft on my own. Yeah. But now these musicians nowadays, they got YouTube, when I was little, I couldn't go out and do stuff. My nephews got cars, they all out to 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Like, when I was little, I couldn't do that stuff, you know what I'm saying? But the fact of the matter is that they have access to so many more things that we don't. So, just like they came up, they want to play because they love it. They don't have a care in the world. I want to make sure they don't, which means that they can go and play on the biggest gig and don't care if they get paid $5 or not. You know what I'm saying? I'm playing because I love to do it, all right? That's another thing. Plan for a lifetime. Don't plan just for that moment. As a musician, we need to plan for a lifetime. Put a vision board together and be able to physically touch your dream to bring your dreams to fruition. I think that's very important. Don't live above your means. Be a good steward over your finances. Being professional. What does being professional mean? Being prompt, being prepared. If they send you some music and you're a professional, be prepared. Invest in your craft. Don't keep calling me, asking me to borrow my stuff. Invest in your craft. Buy you some cymbals and some sticks and some snare, and get you some drums. You can get drums for $300-$400. Buy you a keyboard. Invest in your craft. Be up to date and be abreast of what's new as well as traditional. I think one of the biggest problems with especially younger musicians is that they don't know hymns. They don't know traditional music. All they know is something they got to beat to it. But if you tell them to, do a different time signature or play James Cleveland or Albertina Walker or the O'Neill Twins, they can't go back that far. So I think it's good to have a balance. The importance of being able to maintain as a musician, I think that's important. Thinking over and beyond just being a musician. What do I mean by that? Sometimes we can be a drummer and just a drummer, and when you're dependent on just being a drummer, and everybody know Calvin's my cousin. Thank God he's still alive, but he was in a situation where he played for the first time yesterday at church. I was like, God is amazing, but he couldn't use his hands. And if that's what you're solely dependent on, what are you going to do if you don't have no Aflac insurance, or if you don't have any insurance that'll pay you disability for what you're missing on a week-to-week or month-to-month basis? So I don't think that we think that far ahead. We're only thinking for the moment. Okay, so be able to maintain as a musician. As you start maturing and seasoning a little bit, get into producing, get into writing songs, get into just networking. There's so much stuff out here. Be willing to go on a limb and say, let me call up. Let me try and get in contact with Kanye and see if he'll let me work with him. You just never know. He might say, come on, man, come aboard. You just never know. So be willing just to kind of, like Sharay say, I'm the type of person, if I say I'm going to do something, I do it. I put it together. If somebody tell me no, I keep, Val no.
Oh my God.
I keep going no matter what. So that's another thing. Capitalizing on your music. From your point of view, what do I mean by that? I think that we all have, me having barber colleges and things to that degree, I try and capitalize on what I know and how I know to do it. Not to be braggadocious, but I do things that nobody ever thought of ever before in life. Like, I have smart boards in my classrooms in the barber college. Nobody has ever done that. I have barber colleges inside of, the jail systems and things to that degree. first time in history something like that has ever happened. You know, I have applications for I have an app for your smartphone, another app being developed. It's like I'm doing things where if I don't ever have another barber college, I have other things that are going to pay me. You know, if this goes out of business, so what? I got this.
Right.
And the thing about being incorporated is that some people misconstrue how to be incorporated. You can get incorporated, but what it does is that it protects you as a person. So let's just say, for instance, like people don't know, Donald Trump probably going to file bankruptcy 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
And what they do is that, you know, see, we're little people. So if I was to file bankruptcy, what would happen is that I would eventually, you know, I don't have, see, Donald Trump and them, they might cuff $50 or $100 million right here, but then they'll file bankruptcy on $100 million. So if the bank say, okay, we're going to take everything you have, okay, sure, take it. You want us to get a truck to help you take it out? But see, they can go to that little $50 or $100 million they got cuffed over here, and they can start a whole new other corporation with a different EIN number. They'll be in a different tax bracket, whatever the case may be, and they're straight. So, but if they put it in if they do it in their name, then what ends up happening is that they're filing bankruptcy on their name, but not their corporation. You can do away with your corporation, but you can't do away with your name. So that's the difference between being incorporated, which is a very good thing to do.